All right, let's talk about your draft. First of all, I really like what you did with this first page. Sort of taking that graphic from the back page or last pages that you had going first. I like how this is distributed with like sort of, again, with the albums on the floor kind of thing. Yeah, I think it works really well. The only like relatively minor thing is I might nudge this over a little bit so it's not right on his head. And even if it's like, you might have it centered, these two centered together. But I think visually you can kind of cheat it a little bit, like give or take that, cheat it a little bit within this sort of negative space. And since you have this sort of asymmetrical shape right here, it kind of works still visually because you have the, the C sort of leaning to the left and then this sort of leaning to the right. I think other than that on this page, it's pretty awesome. I think that's a great sort of super strong opening graphic. Maybe making this album a little bit bigger. If you wanted to showcase it as like the newest, that's something that may or may not work. If you make it a little bit bigger, you may like it, you may not. And I always do this wrong because, well, there we go, I did it right. Make sure you don't stretch it like I just did. But, obviously not that big. But something like that, if you wanted to try it, have that be sort of the main focus. It kind of already is because it's sort of centered. You might want to cheat that a little bit visually too. Or even, give it a little bit more space or something like that, but kind of center it within this space. Try a couple things with that just to sort of separate it a little bit more. I think it would, if you wanted to make it pop out a little bit more. Page 2, I really like the flow of this. You definitely have way more text in the article to fill in here. So I think sort of like staying on a similar track with this, I think would work well. I like the way you have the text going around the image. I think it works really well. Working with the columns. The only thing I might say, I see why you did it, and you might have to work it a little bit with the next page and how the text flows. But I might see if you can bring this down just a little bit, or even bring these guys up, or even this one, but bring these two up just a slight bit. Anyway, to try to see if you can get these 3 columns even. You might have to adjust this column a little bit, or this frame rather, and also the size of this frame just to kind of keep everything together. And I'll show you what I mean, obviously. So let's say you resize it here. So now the text obviously is going to push. So you might be able to get away with making this one slightly bigger or slightly taller, even these two slightly taller. And then what you can do here, again, you're going to have to kind of do a combo of like resizing a bunch of the frames and sort of tweak it to find that sort of sweet spot, right? So if you wanted to make these, oh, there you go. I see you might be able to play with that margin padding a little bit to bump these up. But see already there's that separation. So if you wanted to guarantee that sort of separation in this section, what you could do is in here, I know we're not really supposed to edit the text, but this isn't technically editing the text. Right here at the last space, I always have to find where it is, under type, and you can insert a break character. It's similar to a page break in like Microsoft or something like that. So basically what we're doing is we're going to force a column break. And then now this is sort of independent. Well, I just went too far back, but so now this is like totally independent, and then you won't have to worry about it if you size this a little bit. Let's escape out of here. So now if you size this frame a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger, etc., it's not going to affect this frame at all. So now you can kind of tweak these a little bit. You might not be able to make this too much smaller because I think it's going to force that break. Yeah, it forces. See, now you have this giant space because it forces that column break. But it gives you a little bit more room to play around with, sort of finding that sweet spot, either making these a little bit taller and then sort of meeting in the middle with these. But I think keeping these sort of relatively even, I think might have it flow a little bit better. And then sort of like last, I would continue that kind of look, or that kind of, if you wanted to have, sort of a similar thing on this page, rather. Sorry to jump into a different topic. Like even if you reversed it, so I'll zoom out a little bit. So if you had like you have text on the outsides essentially in this U shape. If you did it the opposite, if you had, effectively 3 or 4 columns of text, depending on how you set it up, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then have image on the outside, or even text go across, all that fun stuff. So if you basically had the opposite, or even if you had the text go across the top and just kind of flip that U shape that you have kind of going, you have this U going here. If you had sort of a U going this way and a different image or something like that, you can kind of continue that thought process that you're working on. Lastly, I was going to say graphically, I really like it. I kind of like these offset graphics. What I might do is one of two things: sort of make these shapes a little bit more even. Again, when you even out these, I'm going to delete that one. When you even out these text boxes, you could probably get away with it. I would make these effectively the same. So if you had, I'm going to delete this one. So let's say you had this frame and you want it to be like just past the page numbers, right? And then you could do the same thing. And again, sort of just past the page number. I would have it, effectively be the same on both. You run into a little bit of issues here. So you can put back that other frame that I just deleted. There's behind here. Either do that. I kind of like the striping there that you have. You could keep going with that. But I would kind of try to keep the shapes and the offset, like give or take, the same. You'll probably have to put that black one that I got rid of back in here. Or the other thing I was thinking is if you wanted to do this, basically, and have it just go all the way across, simplify it a little bit. Oh, yeah, you have to make that a little bit smaller. Oh, and we just messed up with, but you get the idea with that. But basically, I'll go back so you can actually see. There we go. Or have that red graphic across the bottom. And then you could either end the article with a white stripe, have a red stripe, and then a white stripe. Effectively, if you kind of continued that might be kind of cool. It's totally up to you, obviously. You could even nudge these in a little bit. Again, if you wanted to kind of have it go past the Rolling Stone there. But I would have it a little bit more even, if that makes sense. And then kind of continue that. But that I like that sort of graphic you're working with. There. It's really nice. The last thing is your interactivity, which is pretty easy to pop in with your buttons and frames, or rather buttons and bookmarks and all that. What I would suggest doing, and I go over this in the tutorial video too, is arranging your workspace and going to the interactive for PDF, because it automatically brings up your hyperlinks and things. So hyperlinks are super easy. You can make these Rolling Stone links, hyperlinks, if you would like. Oh, they're on the master page probably. Which you can do from the master page. But you basically just highlight whatever you want to be a link. And then just like any forum or anything like that, or there are hyperlinks in the article already. You basically just type in the URL that you want it to go to and hit enter, and you've created a hyperlink. Same thing with bookmark. You kind of highlight whatever you want to be a bookmark, and then you just create a new bookmark, and then you name it. You name it here, and then it basically creates an anchor that shows up in bookmarks. In Adobe Acrobat, Preview does not like bookmarks for some reason, so don't look at it in Preview. The trickier one is the buttons and forms. So adding your next and previous. You've already set yourself up pretty well to have it somewhere down here, I would suggest. And if you click on your little contextual menu here under buttons and forms, you can open up. Maybe. Why isn't it letting me open up? Oh, because I'm on my text tool. You have to make sure that you're... Oops, since I just changed everything. There we go. You have to make sure that you're not editing text like I just was. Click on your buttons and forms, contextual menu, and then it has a sample buttons and forms. And then you'll see this giant palette of forms or buttons and stuff. And on the bottom is our navigation arrows. Whoops, I went too far. And there's a bunch of, different sample ones. Some arrows are a little fatter, some arrows are skinnier, whatever, depending on the type of arrow that you wanted. let's just grab this one. So here's a back button. You can literally just drag and drop. And it's really small. It's kind of like a vector shape. And then resize it with the shift tool. And then now you can see, oh, I'm in preview mode, so that's why you can't see it in the free space. But essentially, when you size it and get it where you want, you can have that, you can copy and paste in place on your other pages, so that way it's not, that way it's, the arrows are in like the same spot. So I mean, I would suggest, you know, putting your navigation somewhere in here. So once you have your button and your buttons figured out, or your nav buttons, you know, give or take the size you want, obviously tweak it a little bit more if you want them, let's say right there. They're already coded for being nav buttons. So like if you click on this, you can see like here's all the options. So this is what it's the name is, what it will do. So on a release or a tap, so when you release the mouse or when you tap on a touch screen, and then it goes to the previous page. And then the other one, same thing. You can just grab the next page and throw it wherever you want it on that other page. I'm going to close this palette. So when you get your buttons situated to where you want them, for argument's sake, like right here. So I'm just going to do a copy. I did a Command C, or under here, copy. And then I'm going to make sure we're on, let's say on our last page here. And then I'm going to do a paste in place, and boom, it's right in the same spot. So you don't have to worry about it sort of jumping when you navigate pages. So those are the only things really left to do. I see that you already know how to package because you sent me this in a package, which is great. This font is awesome, by the way. Yeah, so you'll just need to package your final when you're done with it. And then you'll have to export one more time. So you're going to do another save as, or another export rather, as a PDF. So where it says PDF print, PDF interactive, and then you can name it like the same thing, but with INT after it. And you can drop that right into the package that you create and then zip that all together if you want. Unfortunately, when you package, it doesn't export for interactivity for some reason. I wish that was an option, but so you have to do like one extra export for that interactive PDF. But other than that, I think it's great. I'm looking forward to seeing the finished product.